Hey guys, tonight we drift into a world painted with starlight and carved in stone. A world where the universe was not just a place you lived in, it was something you climbed, like a tree, something you whispered to through smoke, something you feared and worshipped in equal measure. We're talking about the Mayans, not just the pyramid builders, calendar makers, or blood sacrificers, but the dreamers who imagined the cosmos as a living, breathing thing. You may not survive this. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. So, close your eyes and picture a tree. Not an ordinary one. This is the world tree, the Mayan axis of everything. Its roots twist deep into the underworld, its trunk stretches through our world, and its crown touches the heavens. They called it the Xibalba tree, and it wasn't just symbolic. It was alive in their stories, in their architecture, even in the places they chose to build their cities. The Mayans didn't see the world as flat or round. They saw it as layered. On top, 13 heavens, stacked like cosmic pancakes, each one ruled by different deities. The sky wasn't a void, it was populated. You didn't just gaze up at stars, you were looking at ancestors, gods, even monsters with fire in their bellies. Then there's the middle world, the one we walk on, full of humans, maze, sweat, and sacrifice. And below us, that's Xibalba, the underworld. Not quite hell, not quite peaceful, more like a really bad dream that somehow keeps going. Xibalba means place of fear. Its rivers flowed with scorpions and blood. The Mayans believed when you died, your soul had to journey through this dark, bizarre realm, facing trickster gods, dodging blade traps, and passing through rooms of screaming bats. Yes, one room was literally called House of Bats. Another, House of Knives, sleep tight. But don't worry, Xibalba wasn't eternal punishment. It was a test, a challenge, and those who passed through it emerged transformed. Think of it as a spiritual escape room with higher stakes. Now, the structure of this cosmos wasn't just myth. It was drawn into every part of Mayan life. Cities were built to mirror the layers of the universe. Temples pointed skyward. Sacred caves were dug downward. Even their ball courts, yes, ball courts, were symbolic battlefields between the forces of life and death. Lose a match and sometimes your head joined the cosmic drama. No pressure, right? And the directions? They weren't just compass points. Each direction had a color, a deity, and a spiritual mood. East was red and full of beginnings. West was black and whispered of death. North held the ancestors. South, the rains and crops. Stand at the center, and you weren't just in a plaza, you were in the heart of creation itself. Historians still argue whether these layers and directions were standardized across all Mayan city-states, or if they were more regional fanfare. But one thing's clear, to the Maya, the universe wasn't up there, out there. It was here, right under your feet, and above your head, and around every corner. Want a fringe tidbit? Some Mayan glyphs suggest that certain kings believed themselves to be walking representations of the world tree. Imagine that, claiming your torso was the trunk of the universe, that your spine held up the sky, not exactly modest. And you know what's wild? When modern archaeologists mapped ancient Mayan cities using LiDAR, laser-based mapping tech that peeks beneath jungle overgrowth, they discovered roads, pyramids, and ceremonial platforms aligned so perfectly with celestial bodies and cardinal directions that it made Google Maps feel imprecise. These people weren't guessing. They knew what they were doing. So as we settle deeper into tonight's story, let your thoughts stretch like that cosmic tree into the heavens, through this world, and down into something deeper. Not darker, just older. The Mayans didn't separate space and spirit. They didn't draw a line between the physical and the mystical. For them, it was all the same dance, the same tree, the same breath moving through stone, soil, and stars. All right, we're under the canopy now. The tree's roots have coiled around our ankles, and its branches are brushing the stars. Let's meet the ones who planted it, or at least who claimed to. Mayans didn't do simple gods. Their deities were complex, layered, and often more like cosmic shapeshifters than the usual thunderbolt-tossing types. These weren't beings you could slap a title on and call it a day. Each one ruled over realms, emotions, plants, stars, and occasionally moonlit vengeance. Let's start with the creator duo, Tepeo and Gukumats. Their names sound like secret menu items at a trendy cafe, but these two were anything but soft. According to the Popol Vuh, the Mayan sacred text, they were the original divine architects. In the beginning, they tried to make humans from mud. Didn't work. The bodies fell apart. Then they tried wood. Too stiff, no souls. Eventually, they hit the jackpot. Maize. Yes, corn. To the Maya, maize wasn't just food, it was flesh. We are made of what we eat, apparently. Even today, Mayan descendants still refer to themselves as the people of maize. It's not metaphor, it's identity. And if you've ever had fresh tamales, honestly, it tracks. Now enter Itzamna, the sky god. He invented writing, medicine, and apparently all the good dad jokes. He was wise, peaceful, and often depicted as a gentle, elderly figure. Then we've got Chak, the rain god, who cried storms and wielded lightning axes. He looked kind of like a grumpy toad with fangs, which, depending on your mood, might be how you feel during rainy season. But the real scene stealer, Ixchel, goddess of the moon, childbirth, and medicine. She had two moods, nurturing healer and vengeful flood bringer. Her symbol was a jaguar, and sometimes she wore a serpent as a hat. Very runway. Think ancient Maya meets high-fashion apocalypse. Fringe tidbit, Ixchel was believed to control not just human fertility, but also the cycles of crops, tides, and even dreams. Some texts hint that women would pray to her during childbirth while holding tiny figurines of the goddess in their palms, like divine stress balls. Then there's Kawil, the god of lightning and kingship, who had a leg shaped like a snake and a forehead that literally shot fire. The Mayans weren't subtle, they were vivid and a little terrifying. And we can't forget the twins, Hunahpu and Ixbalanque. Technically heroes, not gods, but very divine adjacent. They were the main characters of the Popol Vuh, kind of like the Hari and Ron of Mesoamerica, only with more decapitations. These two were sent to the underworld, tricked the death gods at their own game, and basically redefined what it meant to outwit your cosmic enemies with style. More on them later. Historians still debate how universal these deities were across the Maya world. Some gods appear in the northern Yucatan but are absent in southern texts. Others show up in pottery but never in temples. The Mayans weren't a single empire. They were a network of city-states, each with its own spin on the sacred. So the pantheon flexed, flowed, and morphed. And the art? Oh, the art. Deities were painted with twisted serpent legs, skeletal smiles, and intricate headdresses that could house small families. Some wore jaguar pelts. Others had stars dripping from their eyes. They weren't meant to comfort, they were meant to awe. You didn't just pray to them, you negotiated. You see, the Mayan gods weren't necessarily benevolent. They were powerful, unpredictable, and deeply involved in human affairs. They needed offerings, rituals, songs, and yes, blood. Preferably from your ears or tongue, which sounds awful, but to the Maya, it was like sending a voicemail to the divine. Pain was the price of connection, but behind the fierce iconography, there was beauty too. These deities represented forces beyond comprehension: sun cycles, death rhythms, jaguar stealth, the crackle of lightning in your spine when truth strikes. They were reminders that life is strange, sacred, and not always polite. And maybe that's what's so hypnotic about the Mayan cosmology. It didn't try to smooth over the chaos, it danced with it, embraced it, even painted it on the walls. So as we close this chapter of Gods and Guts, just imagine one thing: a torch-lit temple, smoke rising, drums pounding like distant thunder, and a figure in feathered robes whispering a prayer to a god with stars for eyes. That's not fantasy, that's history, just seen through a different lens. Now let's slide quietly from the thrones of gods into the shadows of their rituals. Because what's a divine pantheon without a little drama, ceremony, and bloodletting, right? The Mayans didn't separate belief from behavior. Their spirituality was a full-time gig, baked into the calendar, carved into stone, and scrawled in the margins of daily life. Every act, from planting corn to launching a war, came with its own cosmic paperwork. It wasn't just do the thing, it was do the thing the right way, at the right time, under the right stars, while the right priest sings a hymn about jaguars. Let's start with the calendar, because oh boy, these folks loved a good countdown. In fact, they had multiple calendars, like someone with 3 Google calendars and a sundial just for fun. There was the Hob, a 365-day solar calendar, the Solkin, a 260-day sacred cycle used for rituals and naming babies, and then the Long Count, which kept track of entire cosmic eras. That last one is the one that got misinterpreted in 2012 and made everyone think the world was going to end. Spoiler, the Mayans never said that. They just marked the end of a major cycle, like cosmic graduation day. And yes, certain days were better for bloodletting than others. Ah, bloodletting. Here's your quirky tidbit of the night. Mayan kings and queens would pierce their tongues, earlobes, or genitals. Yep, with stingray spines or obsidian blades. The blood would drip onto bark paper, which they'd burn, sending a smoke message to the gods. This wasn't sadistic, it was sacred. It was how they opened a spiritual portal, like saying, hey, I'm serious about this prayer. Here's some DNA. And sacrifice? Yes, that too. It wasn't every day, and it wasn't always human. But when it was theatrical. Victims, often captives from war, were dressed as gods, paraded through the city, and then offered in ways that historians still debate with furrowed brows and awkward coffee breaks. Some were thrown into cenotes, sacred sinkholes. Others were laid on stone altars, hearts lifted skyward in a final beat of reverence and agony. It sounds brutal, and it was. But to the Mayans, death wasn't the end. It was a promotion. You didn't die, you transcended. Even ball games weren't safe from divine implication. The Mesoamerican ball game wasn't just sport, it was sacred drama. Teams tried to keep a rubber ball in play using only their hips, knees, and elbows, bouncing it through stone hoops mounted absurdly high on temple walls. The game symbolized the cosmic battle between life and death, sun and shadow. Some say the winners were sacrificed. Others argue it was the losers. Historians still go back and forth, partly because neither option sounds particularly rewarding. And those temples? They were engineered to impress the gods and the neighbors. Some were acoustically tuned to amplify chants. Others were aligned with solstices and equinoxes. During the spring and fall equinox at Chichen Itza, for example, a shadow in the shape of a serpent slithers down the pyramid steps. It's not CGI, it's sunlight and stone. Precision worship, 1,200 years ahead of TikTok filters. But not all rituals were sharp and smoky. Some were sweet. Mayan priests used copal incense, a tree resin with a scent like sacred honey, to cleanse spaces and invite benevolent spirits. They'd sprinkle flower petals, chant, rattle gourds filled with seeds, and pour offerings of chocolate and maize beer into the earth. Earth wasn't just dirt, it was a womb, a mouth, a listener. Historians believe many rituals happened at night, under the stars, when the boundary between this world and the next grew thin. Firelight flickering, shadows dancing, breath visible in the cool jungle air. Imagine standing on a temple terrace at midnight, watching Venus rise. Because Venus, to the Maya, was more than a planet. It was a god of war, a cosmic clock ticking away fate. One more fringe detail for your dreams. Some Mayan texts suggest they practiced mirror scrying, gazing into polished obsidian to receive visions. Black mirrors weren't horror movie props. They were doorways. You didn't see your reflection, you saw the other side. But it wasn't just priests doing the work. Commoners had household rituals. They'd offer tortillas to the hearth, speak to the rain, and mark birth dates with whispered prayers. It wasn't hierarchical, it was personal. Everyone had access to the divine, if they knew how to listen. And speaking of listening, the Maya didn't always talk at their gods. Sometimes they waited for dreams, signs, omens, like a deer crossing the path or the cry of a specific bird. The universe was chatty, if you had the ears for it. So now picture this. A king on a temple platform, arms raised to the dawn, blood trickling from his palm. Below, the people kneel, smoke rising in spirals. A priest chants the name of a god whose mouth is filled with stars. And high above, a serpent-shaped cloud coils through the pinkening sky. That's not mythology. That's Tuesday morning in a world where spirit and sacrifice were part of the same breath. So, the gods have been fed, the blood has been spilled, and the stars have been consulted. Now let's slip off our ceremonial headdresses and tiptoe into the quieter realms of the Mayan mind. Those deep, philosophical undercurrents that tried to map not just the heavens, but the soul. Because beyond rituals and rulers, the Maya had questions. Big ones. What is time? What is death? And how does one not completely freak out about both? Let's start with time. To the Maya, time wasn't a straight line with a start and an end. Nope. Time was a spiral, a cycle, a living being. Picture it like a snake coiled in infinite loops, each scale a moment, glinting, alive, and repeating. The Mayans didn't just record time. They respected it, feared it, even negotiated with it. They believed that each day carried a specific energy, like a cosmic weather report. Some days were good for planting, others for marriage, and a few were, let's say, stay in bed and don't touch anything days. They called these day lords, and each one had its own personality. Imagine checking your spiritual forecast. Today ruled by Eek, god of wind. Avoid fire. Speak gently. Hug your grandmother. That kind of vibe. Now death. To the Maya, death wasn't a full stop. It was a pause, a comma in the sentence of existence. When someone died, they didn't vanish. They just relocated. Some souls went to Xibalba, the underworld, literally place of fear, a kind of cosmic DMV filled with challenges like rivers of scorpions and houses full of knives. Fun! But even Xibalba wasn't eternal damnation. It was a process, a test, and some made it back. There was also the heavenly paradise reserved for those who died heroically, especially in childbirth, war, or sacrifice. Yes, sacrifice again. Because dying with purpose was like skipping the line to the afterlife express lane. Do not pass go. Do not collect obsidian teeth, but the real juice is in how the Maya thought identity worked. You weren't just you. You were a bundle of energies, some animal, some ancestral, some divine. One of these was your Wyob, pronounced Wyoba, a kind of spirit companion. It could take the form of an animal, jaguar, owl, bat, and protected or mirrored your fate. If your Wyob got sick, you got sick. If it got strong, so did you. It's kind of like having a Pokemon, except it's your soul and you're both stuck with each other for eternity. Here's a fringe tidbit. Some Mayans believed shamans could physically become their Wyob, shape-shifting under moonlight during rituals. Think less werewolf, more sacred jaguar Zoom call. And then there's the concept of Ku, the divine essence in everything. Not just gods and humans, but trees, rivers, even stones. It wasn't pantheism exactly. More like the universe had a heartbeat, and if you stood still long enough, you could feel it in the soles of your feet. Some modern scholars call this vital force. Others say energy. The Maya didn't bother translating. They just lived it. Historians still argue whether this worldview was influenced by hallucinogenic rituals. Because yes, the Maya did use psychoactive substances, especially in ceremonies. Mushrooms, tobacco, and fermented drinks weren't just for partying. They were doorways, tools. You didn't get high. You went on a spiritual business trip. Let's not forget cenotes, those hauntingly beautiful sinkholes dotting the Yucatan Peninsula. To the Maya, these weren't swimming holes. They were portals, mouths to the underworld. Offerings were tossed in, bones, jade, pottery, even people. But not in fear, in reverence. These were conversations with the gods, conducted in water, shadow, and echo. And now one more twist. The Maya believed humans were made of corn, literally. According to the Popol Vuh, their sacred creation text, the gods first tried to make people out of mud, too flimsy, then wood, soulless. Finally, they used masa, corn dough, the stuff of tortillas, and voila, humans with spirit. So every bite of corn wasn't just food, it was communion, an edible echo of origin. To this day, some Mayan farmers begin planting by praying to the corn. They name the stalks. They ask for forgiveness before harvesting, because corn isn't a crop, it's family. Now here's something that might tickle your sleep-deprived imagination. Some Mayans believed that dreams were more real than waking life, that the spirit traveled at night to realms more honest than the illusion of daylight. And sometimes, if the dream was vivid enough, it could alter fate. So imagine this. A humble farmer sleeps beside his maize field. In his dream, a jaguar walks up and speaks in perfect poetic Quixo. The next day, the man wakes and changes his entire life. That's not superstition, that's instruction. And here's where it gets wonderfully sleepy. The Maya didn't fear the dark, they embraced it. Night was when the world breathed slower, when the stars told jokes and the ancestors leaned in close. Fire crackling, dogs curling beside doorways, and that gentle thrum of jungle life, all reminders that even in stillness, the world is speaking. So if you ever feel like your soul is scattered, like your thoughts are a flock of birds you can't quite gather, remember, you're made of stories, stars, and a little bit of cornmeal. You are part Wyob, part stardust, part whisper in the dark. And somewhere in a forgotten temple beneath a curtain of vines, your echo is still dancing through stone corridors, chasing the shape of truth. Okay, sleepyhead, just one last dive before we drift. We've walked through creation myths, blood rituals, time loops, and soul serpents. But let's zoom out. Let's float up way above the temples and jungles until we can see it all as the ancient Maya did, a vast living map. Because to them, the cosmos wasn't a background. It was the stage, the script, and the spotlight all at once. You weren't just in the universe. You were the universe, and it very much was you. So let's talk maps. Not of countries, but of existence. The Mayans imagined the universe as a three-layered structure, like a cosmic sandwich. On top, the upper world or heavens, where gods lounged, danced, and occasionally meddled. In the middle, the earthly realm where humans, animals, and avocado trees lived their complicated, beautiful lives. And below, you guessed it, Xibalba, the underworld. But not hellfire and pitchfork stuff, more like a misty realm of challenges, spirits, and transformation. Think of it as soul boot camp. These layers weren't just metaphors, they were mirrored in pyramids. That's right. Those step pyramids, not just fancy graves. Each level represented a layer of the universe. Climb to the top and you weren't just sweating, you were ascending into the heavens. In the center of this cosmic trifecta, a world tree known as Yashe. Picture a giant ceiba tree with roots digging deep into Xibalba, branches brushing the sky, and a sturdy trunk connecting it all. It's the ultimate spiritual elevator. The Maya believed that at the moment of creation, this tree was planted, and through it, energy flowed between realms. Shamans? They were the bellhops, able to ride that current up or down during rituals. Here's a fringe bit you'll love. Some Mayans claim that the Milky Way was this very tree, lying horizontal across the night sky. So when you stare up at those stars, you're looking at the spine of the cosmos glowing faintly, stretching forever. Let's pause for a moment. You still with me? Try to feel it. Imagine that ceiba tree rooted in your belly. Each breath, a branch rising. Each heartbeat, a root diving. You are the tree. You are the bridge. You are very, very sleepy now. Now about time. Remember the long count calendar that freaked everyone out back in 2012? That was Mayan. But the world didn't end, of course. It just ticked over like an odometer. Because again, to the Maya, time didn't die. It renewed, just like crops, just like lives. And their calendar wasn't just days and weeks. It was infused with spiritual charge. Each day was like a person with moods, rules, and jobs. That's why Mayan scribes wore massive headdresses, because keeping track of cosmic time was exhausting and divine. Now comes my favorite bit, the sky monsters. That's what some scholars call the massive celestial serpents that slithered across Mayan mythology. These weren't scary. They were guides, protectors, carriers of gods across the sky. In many glyphs, you'll see deities riding the backs of these snakes, traveling between realms, stargazing from celestial scales. Some believe eclipses were moments when the sky serpent swallowed the sun or moon, a hiccup in the divine rhythm. So what did the Maya do when that happened? Panic? Nah, they sang, they drummed. They reminded the serpent, gently, that it wasn't snack time yet. Historians still debate how the Maya were able to predict celestial events with such freaky precision. Some say trial and error, others whisper alien help and wink dramatically. But the truth might just be this: the Maya watched, patiently, night after night, for centuries. They weren't guessing, they were listening. And speaking of listening, the Maya believed certain places echoed more than sound. They believed sacred geography existed, spots on Earth that vibrated with spiritual significance. Caves were entrances to Xibalba. Mountaintops were God-meeting points. Even crossroads had spirits. Step into the wrong path at the wrong time, and boom, spiritual detour. Hope you pack snacks. Here's something tender. During planting season, farmers would sometimes whisper the names of their ancestors into seeds before burying them. Why? So their lineage would rise again with the corn. That's not farming, that's resurrection in rows and furrows. And in death, the body might be buried with jade in the mouth, to serve as currency in the afterlife. Kind of like cosmic PayPal. It wasn't about riches, it was about passage. Let's zoom back to the stars, shall we? One constellation the Maya adored was the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque. These two pranksters went on a wild ride through the underworld, faced off with demon lords, survived being tricked, and eventually got turned into the sun and moon. If you're sensing epic comic book energy here, you're right. These myths were full of heart, sass, and transformation. But more than stories, they were codes. The hero twins taught people how to navigate loss, how to trick fate, and how to rise again. Basically, Mayan spirituality was a masterclass in resilience, with a side of jaguar masks and obsidian daggers. And now, before your eyelids droop completely, let me leave you with this. To the Maya, you were never separate from the cosmos. Every action echoed. Every whisper mattered. You were woven into time like a thread of starlight. And even now, your dreams ripple across the layers of existence like rings in a sacred cenote. So drift, traveler. Let the serpent carry you. Let the world tree cradle your dreams. And if you hear a drum beat in the distance, know that the gods are still dancing, slowly, softly, somewhere above the clouds. So now the journey folds itself gently, like an old codex closed with reverence after the last line has been read. You've walked through time and myth, through stars and roots, and now it's time to let the story settle, not as noise, but as lullabies, whispering beneath your thoughts. Let go of the hero twins. Let their laughter dissolve into moonlight. Picture the ceiba tree again, its branches swaying above you, not in the wind, but in breath, your breath, steady and soft. The stars have dimmed slightly now, as if they too have tucked themselves beneath cosmic blankets. Feel your limbs soften, the back of your neck, your shoulders, your hands, melting like jade warmed by a sunlit river. There is nothing left to do, no riddles to solve, no serpents to charm, just the hush of a sky that remembers you, cradles you, folds around you like a soft cloak made of dreams. Somewhere far off, a distant drum still pulses, but it's quieter now, like a heartbeat inside a womb, or the echo of a whisper you can't quite place, but know you've heard before. If your mind drifts, let it. If a memory rises or a face appears you don't recognize, smile gently. That's just your spirit stretching, unfolding across time like a vine on a stone wall. Breathe in and out. Again. Slower now. Let the candle flicker out. Let the starlight dim behind your closed lids. And if the cosmos whispers something strange and ancient in your sleep tonight, don't be afraid, just smile. It's the world saying, welcome back. Sleep deeply, traveler. Sleep.